You got Mac and Mark today here on Birds 365. Farzetta in for Johnny Mac. And we're lucky enough to get Mike Tanier to join us as our first guest today. Mike, longtime writer of Football Outsiders. Now writing these days for a new website, The Messenger. I got to be honest with you, Mike. I had not been to The Messenger until I saw on Twitter that you were writing for, I'm going to have to go check out The Messenger. Give us the deal on the new website.
You have to go to The Messenger because it is not just a sports or football site. It is a full-service news outlet, news, business, entertainment, politics, etc., and sports. We launched the sports section officially next week. We're kind of in beta mode, but it is absolutely free. You can sign up for their newsletter and check it out. It's your one source for all the news you need.
Going to be interested in doing that. Sometimes that's tough to find. Would you suggest, I'm going to get him in trouble, I'm going to get myself in trouble. Would you suggest it's a middle of the road, since you ventured down the political road, middle of the road news website?
That is the goal. That is the stated goal of the people in charge of that section. Middle of the road, try and give you the least varnished, least biased version of that. We'll see. You know, no one thinks anything's middle of the road, but that's what the plan is there. Hey, in the sports section, it is nothing but hot takes all the time, though. So it's safe harbor in the football section.
Good on you for that. All right. Here's how I want to start today, Mike, with the first question that you can take in whatever direction you need to. Will Jonathan Taylor be traded before the season, assuming the team is willing to both match the price that the Colts are going to ask for him and make him a happy guy with a contract extension? Is there any team in the NFL that will pull that trigger?
No. There are going to be a lot of teams calling the Colts with low ball offers and saying, hey, Jonathan, either come here and prove it on the final year of your contract, or we'll give you 1 year at $7. What did Ezekiel Elliott get? 1 year at $7.2 million or something to that effect. So this is all silliness. This is all happening like almost as an effort to try to let Jonathan Taylor, come to religion a little bit and recognize it's not happening. All the things that's been happening the last couple of weeks between you and the Colts, it only really ends ideally with you going back, hopefully running for 1,300 yards, then going out as a free agent, or them franchising tagging you, which they wouldn't do. But then you get $10.5 million for a year. That's about as good as it gets. This is ridiculous because that's not the way the running back market works anymore.
Mike, I got to ask this question away from Jonathan Taylor for a second, but you mentioned the hot takes in the new Messenger Sports section. Looking forward to that coming out, obviously. But when it comes to this Eagles team, I know a lot of people around Philadelphia, myself included, are looking at this team and say, this is the best in the NFC. This is a team that will make it back to a Super Bowl. They certainly are poised to do that. But there's this little thing people talk about called the Super Bowl hangover. Why should Philadelphia, what do you think of the number one, number two reasons why Philadelphia should believe that the Eagles are not going to be a victim of the Super Bowl hangover?
There's nothing about the character of this team that we've seen that suggests that they're going to be satisfied by this, that these are people who let egos go to their head. Nothing that we've seen from Jalen Hurts suggests that he might be like the last group of guys who came in here and did that. You have players who went to the Super Bowl, went through that, won a Super Bowl. You still have leadership on that team who did that, came back the next year and experienced that hangover. You've got an influx of young players. All of these things combined suggest that this is a team that has sort of a plan, infrastructure in place to overcome that and doesn't have this combination of whatever you call it, egos, resting on your laurels, etc., that's going to cause that to happen. Think of them like the Chiefs. The Chiefs never had a Super Bowl hangover for the Chiefs is you lose the next Super Bowl or you lose in the AFC Championship game because that's how Reid are. That's how Mahomes is. That's how I think Sirianni, Hurts, and those guys are.
No, hopefully that's the case. But I'll tell you my own problem because at the Messenger, here on Birds 365, on the Farzy Show, on the Jody McDonald Show, CBS Sports Radio, we're all at this time of year being expected to make projections and figure out what's going to happen in a year that hasn't started yet. And yeah, the NFC looks like it's the Eagles' kingdom to me right now. There were only 8 teams in the NFL that won a playoff game last year. Only 8. Right. 3 of them reside in the NFC East. The Giants won a playoff game. The Cowboys won a playoff game. There's only 8 of them, and 3 of them are in the Eagles division. Why am I just dismissing the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants that you can show up if you want, but when all is said and done, that 19-year nobody's repeated in the NFC thing is going to go by the wayside because the Eagles are going to win it again. Am I looking at this with eagle-colored blinders on?
A little bit. The Cowboys should be a very, very tough competitor right in the division. And the Giants are no slouches. I think that they're a notch below. If you really look at their roster up and down, they're still a rebuilding team. You look, they have 2 rookie cornerbacks ready to start, and they look like good rookie cornerbacks, but they're rookie cornerbacks. You're not going to the Super Bowl with them. They're going to make mistakes along the way. The reason we dismiss the Cowboys is because they're the Cowboys. If you took the star off of there and you put like Green Bay Packers logo and you gave them the same talent, be like, okay, that's a real challenger. And of course, they're in our division. Everything that came out of the Cowboys camp this year was that sort of lukewarm, ultra dramatic soap opera Cowboys nonsense. If they sweep past that, they really are that good, and they can really be a handful for the Eagles.
Now, it's all about quarterback play, obviously. We talked about Jalen Hurts. We've talked about Jalen Hurts a lot. Not as much as last offseason, where we were curious as to whether or not he was the guy. I think he answered that question with a resounding yes, exclamation point. He's got the same weapons this year. He's got different running backs, but he's got a different offensive coordinator. What do you think Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts' relationship will be? We know they're close. We know they're boys. They've known each other forever off the field. But as far as that coordinator and play caller relationship with the quarterback, how do you see that playing out this year?
I don't anticipate a major change because, I didn't see, Shane Steichen went from an unknown to, a head coach, and he's gone. Like, there was never this sense that, oh, we brought in this Wunderkind and he was this or that, or he was Sean McVay or he was a Shanahan. No, he comes in, this system comes in, Hurts works within it, and they go on. Now you got Johnson again. There's a relationship there. I don't see any reason for friction. I don't see any reason for tension. I don't see any reason for that other side of things where it's like Rodgers and Hackett, where you just become like the mouthpiece. Again, these are not those kind of people there. So nothing on that side of the ball has me that worried. Nothing on the other side of the ball has me that worried either because, Jonathan Gannon, we saw in the Super Bowl, he wasn't necessarily scheming up to a certain level, and I think they did a pretty good job getting a replacement there.
Yeah, that's a very interesting dynamic coming into the Eagles on this season and what kind of defense Sean Desai is going to run.
Right.
Because you have to believe it's going to be really similar to the one that the Eagles ran last year. Nick Sirianni is on the record that he's got his philosophy, he's got his defensive tenets that he wanted in place, and that's why Sean Desai got the job, because he's a Fangio guy and ties into those things. But he's been a little different in camp. Not shown a lot, not said a lot, but what he has shown gives you the belief that he's going to try and be flexible, that they're moving Bradbury into the slot. I'm not quite sure I even understand why they do something like that to cover the best big tight ends in the league. Okay, I guess that makes sense. But he's showing that he wants to do things a little bit differently, maybe more differently than I thought we were going to see. Do you think Sean Desai's got the same length of rope that Gannon did, that he is going to be able to run the defense the way he wants to? Or do you think Sirianni at some point is going to go, wait a minute, you and I discussed this. I want the same defense I had last year. This isn't the same defense. What are you doing there, Sean? How do you think it's between the coach and the DC?
Right. I don't think you bring in a guy who's got like Vic Fangio and he's got like Pete Carroll bona fides and not give him a long leash there. I am trying to figure out the Bradbury thing. And one of the things that I do notice is, CeeDee Lamb's in the slot a lot for the Cowboys. They like putting him in the slot. The Giants have like 11 slot receivers right now. And if you look at where the ball goes, it's always going into the slot. It might be a recognition that you put a guy there that you have a lot of confidence in. So there might be a logic to that. I think if you look at the personnel of the Eagles, like, you should not be blitzing a lot with the Eagles. You've got like 18 different edge rush ends that you can put in there. You got all these guys you can bring in D tackle. It should almost be Schwartz, like these 4 are coming at you, and then you can do what you want to on the backside. And I think that's what's going to dictate here. You have the luxury and decide that you have this personnel that you can be flexible with, that you can move around. You're not hiding the weakest link. You're not faking it to generate pass rush by blitzing and stuff like that. That should make things a lot easier for him as a defensive coordinator.
On that note, Nakobe Dean at Georgia was great at blitzing, 6.5 sacks in his last season there at Georgia. He can get after the quarterback. To me, I think that Jonathan Gannon fell under a little too much scrutiny for this one thing. I don't necessarily have a scheme. I have a philosophy. I don't think that's a horrible thing, because we always say great coaches, great coordinators, whatever. Jim Johnson certainly did this. He coached to what he had. He didn't square peg, round hole it. So obviously there's a chance and everything, but he has somebody that can get after the quarterback in Nakobe Dean, and he's going to be going up the middle behind 2 guys that he's got a lot of experience going up the middle between, in Jordan Davis and obviously Jalen Carter. So would it be far-fetched to think that maybe Nakobe Dean is sent on a mission to get after the quarterback a little bit more than what we saw from Jonathan Gannon and TJ Edwards, for instance?
I would love to see it, and I think that is a better personnel fit. And when we talk about blitzing, there are some coordinators who blitz about like 10% of the time, like Tony Dungy, like 5-10%. That was all it. And then you have like the Ryan brothers where it's like 40 or 50%. When you're in that like 15 to 30%, there's a huge range, and that's where somebody who has a flexible scheme can go up and down. And in that range, when you have a Nakobe Dean, and you can say, well, we don't have to really reinvent the wheel with this blitz package. We bring 4, somebody shoots the gap. Somebody's shooting the A gap, and it's going to be Nakobe Dean. That's a place where you can use him and get the most out of him without necessarily overusing him or creating a situation where you're shorthanded on the back end.
I need your take on this, Mike, because it's become a cause celeb here in the last week or so, certainly since the Thursday night preseason game that the Eagles last played. And maybe we'll get more information today that will let us know where the Eagles as an organization and Sirianni as the head coach are sitting as of right now. If I had to give you an in-depth scouting analysis of how Marcus Mariota has played this spring, it would be he stunk. I don't think I need to say much more than that. He stunk. Now, he's the backup quarterback, and he's the veteran guy, and the only other guy they have on the roster that looks like he could go in and maybe win a game if Jalen Hurts gets hurt is a 6th-round draft pick out of Stanford. So there is a rush here to try and get the Eagles a better backup quarterback, either it be putting Tanner McKee at number 2 or the Eagles on the waiver wire. Nick Foles' name gets thrown out. Carson Wentz's name gets thrown out. I don't see either of those two things happening. Who's going to be the backup quarterback when they go to New England in a couple weeks, Mike?
Does Tanner McKee remind you of Nick Foles?
A little bit. Size. He's got just enough athletic ability to avoid a rush, but you don't want him turning it up the field and trying to make Jalen Hurts type runs. Yeah, I see where you're going with that.
But that's it. And it's like a pocket passer, has a quick release, does a lot of things well. And then he takes off to run. And you're like, oh my God, if you were a half a step faster, if this was not like watching a school bus try to pull out into traffic, then there would be no question who the backup quarterback is. You're right. Mariota has stunk. I've not been in camp. I've been watching the preseason games. All I've seen is the continuation of the second half of last season with Marcus Mariota, where like the arm is shot. The decision-making, the courage with the ball is kind of shot where it's like, let me eject this down the field. My gut tells me if they're going to name Mariota the backup, because if it's the third quarter and Hurts gets injured and somebody has to come in and has to run the offense, you can put Mariota out there. You hope that he's not going to panic in the situation and you don't have to change your scheme that much. If anything serious happens to Hurts, season's probably over anyway, but they would probably very quickly turn to Tanner McKee. So I think it's a little bit nominal. And I don't know what's out there. I don't think Nick Foles is the answer. We're not even going to talk about Carson Wentz as a possibility. Nobody's going to release a quarterback at this point that's of a talent that's going to make a difference there. That's how I see it playing out. And the best thing you can say about it is McKee has been encouraging. He looks like somebody you can develop. He looks like somebody you can get something out of if you need to.
And again, as you just said, Mike, this is all in the vein that Jalen Hurts is healthy and he plays, and we don't even need a backup quarterback. The Eagles don't even need a backup quarterback. So under that dream, how do they keep Jalen Hurts healthy? I know it's a question of any athletic or any running quarterback, and I don't know if you consider Jalen Hurts necessarily a running quarterback. I consider him to be a very athletic and smart quarterback. But how do they keep him healthy? Is it a matter of throwing and trusting your running backs more when the play's not there and maybe dumping it down, checking it down to one of them? Is it more screen plays where he's just worried about one target, not necessarily making a read? How do you keep a guy like Jalen Hurts healthy, or how do you help him stay healthy?
Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, all the guys, these guys that they've been bringing in the last couple of years that are playing well, I think, in the preseason overall. That's where it starts. I think even the running element of the system is not Cam Newton plunging off tackle, like trying to break tackles. Josh Allen does that a little bit too. He is in open space. He can slide. He can get out of bounds in most cases. And, schematically, there are a lot of quick passes in there. So anything you can do to help a mobile quarterback who's going to take hits in the running game, the Eagles have done. You're stuck at that point with the luck of the draw, so to speak. Somebody blindsides you, et cetera. But I think the Eagles have done everything they could to make a sustainable system for Jalen Hurts.
And, oh, by the way, I believe Nick Sirianni when he says Why would I take away his superpower? I know they gave him the big contract, but that was a key element to the Eagles' offense last year. He had 165 carries. Whole bunch of those were tush push 1 yarders, which you are believing and hoping he doesn't get hurt. But I think he's going to run as much this year as he did last year. People are looking for him to cut it back, scale it back, because now he's important because he's making all that money. No, he's going to run just like he did. I don't think that Sirianni or Johnson is going to change that anytime soon.
There's your job. There's your job for Mariota. Make him the 1 yard tush push guy to save Hurts, or use McKee, who's like 6'7" and just like fall forward and get shoved. And that way you don't have to worry about Hurts. Maybe we found the role, the short yardage role for the backup quarterback.
Don't think they'll be doing that anytime soon, because Mariota is not as good at it as Hurts is, and you don't want to be tipping your hand as to what kind of play calling you're going to
Mariota would crouch down. Yeah. Okay.
All right. We're going to get past the dual practice today, and then the virtually meaningless preseason game against the Colts on Thursday night, and then it's off to the regular season. Week 1 in New England against the Patriots. I think if the Eagles should stumble and fall, it'll be for one reason and one reason only, and his name's Tom Brady. And I know Tom Brady's not going to play, but they're going to honor him, and that crowd is going to be lit. That the secondary ticket market, the most expensive game all year long, is the Eagles and the Patriots week 1, because everybody's got to be there when they give their hosannas to Tom Brady. Are the Patriots going to be good enough that if their emotions are raised to level enough that they can actually upset the Eagles week 1, Mike?
That's exactly the way to put it. Never overestimate the Foxborough yips and the ghosts of Brady and those Super Bowls, because we've seen it in the last 3 years where like these very inferior looking Patriots teams, the Bills would come to town in Foxborough and have a little mini panic attack out there like they're still facing Tom Brady. I think any team can be susceptible to that. The Eagles could be susceptible to that. That's what it will take, though. It will take this extremely emotional response, this crowd that's going nuts that kind of forces a mistake for the Eagles, and it creates a situation where the Patriots defense could take over that game and turn it into this muddy turnover and field goal fest. That's the only avenue for the Patriots to victory. Other side of the ball, Patriots offense does not look any better. They brought in Bill O'Brien, and all you're hearing is, Belichick was yelling at Mac Jones in training camp. Oh, Mac Jones, gets strip sacked in the preseason games. Oh, Bailey Zappi is still in the mix for starting quarterback. I don't think that's a very good offense at all. I think it's a fine defense. They're going to need to win those games with the emotion and the gumption and that sort of thing. And it is possible that the Eagles fall to that.
You stepped You stepped in it, Mike. I think you threw a little shade on the Jets there. I don't know if Jody's going to stand for that, but
that's all right. It was just a slip of the tongue.
I actually agree with you, Mike. I agree with you for the record. Overall, when you look at this Eagles team, what is your expectation? Is it another Super Bowl appearance? Is it an NFC Championship game appearance? Or your overall expectation for this Eagles team?
12, 13 wins into the playoffs, into that playoff tournament, get to the NFC Championship, and then it becomes the luck of the draw at that point. Here is my fear. Okay, now here is my fear in the world. I haven't brought this up yet. Okay, we just said if Jalen Hurts gets hurt, that's the Eagles are not going to go very far. San Francisco 49ers, if Brock Purdy gets hurt, Trey Lance comes in, they probably win 11, 12 games. If Trey Lance then gets hurt, Sam Darnold comes in, they probably win 11 or 12 games. My fear of this is there's one team in the entire NFL that could say, our third string quarterback can win 10, 11, 12 games and get into this playoff competition, and you guys could suffer a major injury and be gone. And that's the 49ers. The evidence that they can do that is that's what they did last year. Purdy was their third string quarterback. So, I look at this and say, I'm looking at all these teams, and full strength, the Eagles are probably at the top of the list, second to the Colts, Bills in the NFL, whatever. If you start cutting away the strength, the Eagles' depth is not phenomenal. Most of these other teams are not phenomenal, but then you start looking at the 49ers and say, oh, they could lose this, they could lose this, and that's where you start to worry.
All right, before I get to the AFC, who's the third best team in the NFC? I fear I know your answer already, and we're going to disagree, but that's fine.
49ers,
if the 49ers and
Eagles
are the two best, who's number three?
Cowboys.
Yeah, I know I watched the game the other night. It meant nothing. Again, everybody subs. The Seahawks actually beat them. I think the Seahawks are the third best team in the NFC. I do. And I've done a 180 on Geno Smith. I was a Geno detractor because he stunk when he was with the Jets. But he played damn well last year, and their defense, getting Wagner back, is going to be better than it was, and Adams will be healthy, and Carroll's a hell of a coach. I actually think the Seahawks are the third best team in the NFC.
Young defenders that I really like, very good draft class. They were fading down the stretch last year. And one of the reasons they were fading down the stretch is their offensive line started to backtrack. They had 2 rookie tackles who were like the talk of the league for the first couple of weeks. They started to make mistakes. Defenders kind of figured out what they could do. Geno was under fire a little more. He took a little bit of a step back along the way. The Seahawks land in that tier with me like the Giants and like the teams like the Saints and Falcons, in that weird little division they're in there. These are good teams. I just think that, you have the Eagles, Niners, Cowboys, and they're just stacked at a different level right now.
When it comes to that Cowboys team, I know we talked about them a little bit earlier, but if they are the number 3 or even number 4, I mean, usually you can look around the league and look around the conference rather and see 5 teams that would be a threat to your squad when healthy. But when it looks like the Cowboys and what they have put on paper, and I know that they always get the big network bump and the ratings bumps and all that stuff, and everybody cares about the Cowboys. You either love them or you hate them and all that. It just comes down to one main thing. When push comes to shove, they don't show up. They come up small. I mean, that's really the – and look, I don't know what the reason's going to be this year. I don't know if it's going to be Dak having another interception fest. I don't know if it's going to be Mike McCarthy now calling plays and he's going to come up small in the biggest moments, or their defense doesn't foot the bill when it comes to what they're supposed to do with adding guys like Stephon Gilmore, for instance, for this season. It's odd to me when you look at that Cowboys team that you look at a team that you look at the names and they say, wow, there's talent. There's a Super Bowl winning coach, albeit, yes, with Aaron Rodgers, but people conveniently forget how many Packers were on IR that year when they won the Super Bowl. So Mike McCarthy was doing something right. But the Cowboys, to me, inevitably are just going to end up doing what most of Philadelphia says they always do, which is choke. So why should I buy into the idea that the Dallas Cowboys will have somewhat of a better year than what they had last year?
When you do analytics and you're trying to really do things just very mathematically and objectively, you have to take things that happened 20 years ago and you have to throw them away. You have to take Tony Romo missing the hold on the extra point and you throw some of those things away. And when you do that, the Cowboys are this great team. But like when you are a human and you have a subjectivity, you recognize that there might be a flaw inherent into the system that you can't measure with math. And McCarthy could be that flaw. Jerry could be that flaw. Don't forget the kicker situation. The kicker screwed the pooch last year, and then they're bringing in this kid from the USFL to kick, and he has not been very good at camp. So, I would say that with your heart, recognize the Cowboys are still that team that's going to do something dumb in the playoffs. With your head, if you're putting wagers down and stuff like that, be a little more mindful of just how strong they really are. And history like that has a way of changing at a moment's notice.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I'm not as big a Cowboy guy as you are coming into the year. You touched on it a little bit. Did they get better at wide receiver by adding Cooks? Yes, give them credit for it. They get better at cornerback where they needed an upgrade, getting Gilmore. Yeah, give them credit for it. Did they get worse at tight end? Oh, I think so. Dalton Schultz was a key guy for Zach the last couple of years. And if you tell me this Schoonmaker kid is going to all of a sudden come out of nowhere and done anything, have been hurt in camp, I think they take a step back there. Good luck to a USFL kicker. I know Brett Maher kind of ended their season last year, but this guy was playing professional soccer 2 years ago, and now he's going to kick game-winning field goals in the NFL? I don't know about that. And the biggest thing of all, and this is an analytics thing where you unfortunately have to go back a little bit, Mike, but I know you have. What kind of play call is Mike McCarthy going to be? We don't know, and I like Dak, and the Eagle fans have to begrudgingly give Dak credit because he's got a winning record against the Eagles. He's played well against the Eagles. He's had issues with other teams, but he's been able to beat the Eagles. But I kind of give a lot of the credit that McCarthy got as a play caller in Green Bay to that Rodgers guy that I could have called plays and Rodgers could have turned them into touchdowns. How good, how under a microscope should McCarthy be for his play calling for the first half of this season?
It should be very much under the microscope. And I guarantee you, if the play calling looks stale and stagnant, he'll blame Schottenheimer. because that's kind of how McCarthy operates. But it'll be him. He's been putting the target on himself for the last 6 months, talking about play calling. He has, a pamphlet. There's like 6 plays that he really wants to run. So we will have to see. Now, all the news coming out, first of all, about tight end, they like Jake Ferguson there. They're really happy with the camp he had. That's part of the news there. Take that or leave it. They've been really raving about, a different tempo and like different protection schemes and all these other West Coast offense things they're going to bring in. So the storyline is McCarthy has changed as a play caller, or that the old play calling was a storyline or a myth or whatever. We'll see. But you're absolutely right. For now, that's going to be what you're looking at. If you see them running slant flats, like it's like the Madden, X button over and over again, you know that nothing has changed, and you can sort of like set your watch by what's going to happen to the Cowboys next.
I know Jody wants to ask you about the AFC, but I got one more thing I got to ask you about the NFC East. You mentioned the Giants aren't that far behind when it comes to the Cowboys, and obviously I think they're a very well-coached team. They invested some money there in the 2 of their marquee players there, offensively speaking, and Daniel Jones and obviously Saquon Barkley. But why are the Giants that close? What have they done to show you they could be that close to even the Cowboys to be one of the top teams in the NFC?
Very strong offensive line anchored by Andrew Thomas. Very strong defensive line anchored by Dexter Lawrence and these other guys that they brought in. So you start with that absolute ability in the trenches. Very clear that Waller, the tight end, has had a phenomenal camp, that he's bounced back, that he's one of these guys the Raiders let go because they're the Raiders. That's a strength there. And then you talk about the coaching there. Like, there's no marquee wide receiver 1, okay? It's a bunch of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3s. That system is designed to get those guys the ball, to kind of like peck you to death with these little short passes. And that's going to make them a very strong team overall. Good protection, good enough running game, diversified offense, great front seven. Kayvon Thibodeau looks like he's coming around as their premier edge rusher. That's going to make them a tough out. What's going to be their Achilles here, like you say, young guys in the secondary they really like, but they're really young guys in the secondary. And yeah, when you don't have a wide receiver 1, you don't have A.J. Brown, you don't have Jamar Chase, whatever, it's going to limit what you can do in terms of your ceiling.
I lied. One more NFC question for me. Then I will get into the AFC. Tony Pollard last year played 16 games, pretty good, had about 190 some odd carries. On paper, it looks to me like they're going to need him to take more like 250 carries since Zeke is no longer there. And he did get hurt right at the end of the season last year. Is that an issue for the Cowboys? Tony Pollard keeping him upright? That he's got a chance. He's got the talent to become a star back in this league. But do you think he's got the wherewithal to stay healthy for all 17 games?
Running backs don't matter. Running backs don't matter. Okay,
it's not like everybody else around the National Football League.
Running backs, I shouldn't say that because I don't like saying it. Running backs don't matter very much. Okay, very much. Okay, you're gonna get this kid Deuce Vaughn, who's about like 5 foot nothing, and like is like a little bocce ball, and have him ram in there. You have this kid not Rico Suave. Yes, yeah. You can bring in these guys. Okay, what matters for them is if their offensive line is strong. Zach Martin is back. They've got Tyson Smith, Tyler Smith. They've got bodies there. For years, they've had it figured out on the offensive line. That's not going to be an issue for them.
All right, we shall see. One of McMullen's favorite lines. Nobody cares about stopping the run until you have to stop the run. Then people start to care about it. I'm going to give you a hot take here. The AFC is better than the NFC. Like everybody's been saying that all off season long. Oh, my God, the AFC is so much better. And there's a reason they say it, because it looks that way on paper. Yeah. How big is the divide between the AFC, NFC, the 2 conferences top to bottom compared to each other, Mike?
It's all about that top to bottom because you say, okay, the Eagles, let's say the Eagles and the 49ers do deserve to be right in the conversation with the Bengals and the Bills and the Chiefs. And then you get to the second tier and you start talking about, Aaron Rodgers is not somebody to be overlooked. Neither is Lamar Jackson. That you have this Browns team that's a lot stronger. You have a Chargers team and a Jaguars team that are up and comers. And like all of the Dolphins, all of these are like at this level where you could talk about them suddenly exploding to be in the Super Bowl. Like, oh, how did the Jets get in the Super Bowl? Aaron Rodgers helped take them there. Okay. How did the Dolphins do it? Tua stayed healthy and Tyreek Hill had 2 million yards, whatever. If you try to do that with like the Seahawks, the Giants, even the Lions, you start to churn in terms of, well, all these guys you didn't expect suddenly became MVPs. That's a level that's different. In the NFC, we have teams like the Saints and Falcons where we're talking about they could win 10, 11 games because their schedule is easy. You have nobody like that. In the AFC, you have the Ravens might only go 9-8, or the Steelers might only go 9-8, 8-9, despite all this talent, because their schedule is so hard. That's the difference you're looking at in terms of the quality.
All right, last thing for me, Mike, and I'll readily admit I haven't been able to pick up on this. On Saturdays, I spend too much time in front of my TV watching the NFL Network and watching meaningless preseason games with third stringers and the like, but that's what we do. It seems to me like there isn't an NFL rule change or an emphasis on something that they want the referees to call for an upcoming season. It's happened each of the last 2 or 3 years. And you go, wait, they're going to call this all year long? And they call it like the first or second week, and they go back to calling it the way they usually call it. But they want to make a point in preseason with how they're going to have a slight adjustment with the way the game is going to be called. I've not noticed that this year. Am I just missing it? Is there something out there that I should be noting? Or is this going to be a season where we're just expecting the rules to still be the rules when the season gets underway?
I haven't even noticed that big a change in kickoffs with these new kickoff rules. It all kind of looks the same. You can, kick it deep, or you can kick it short, whatever. I'm waiting for that to be an impact. But you're right. I've seen roughing the passer calls that looked a little ticky-tack. We've been seeing that, for 25 years, whatever. I've seen ineligible man downfield calls really the last year or two. Eagles fans, we know that, you did an RPO and you got 6 inches too far. Nothing that really stands out where you're going to say, oh, this is the 15-yard penalty that's going to change a game in week 1. I think it's the same things that we have to get used to, and that's these sort of safety measures that the league is always emphasizing.
All right. Mike's new employer, themessenger.com, brand new website that he tells us is going to be all-inclusive news, entertainment, sports to get underway next week. When is the debut day for the sports section of The Messenger?
I believe it'll be August 28th, and people will be able to find like lots and lots of team previews by May when we do this launch, because I've been writing dozens. I guess 32 previews for around the league so that we're ready for launch with all the content you need.
All right, then see, now you just let me to one more question. What team surprised you? You're doing your research, you're crunching your numbers, you're using your outsider way of looking at things, and you said, damn, they might be better than I was thinking. Did anybody jump off the page when you were doing your team previews?
The Atlanta Falcons, I was going to just say, well, they'll be fine because their schedule's easy. Then you look at sort of the depth of talent, offensive line, all these additions across their defense. You say, no, this is a pretty solid team if their quarterback, Desmond Ridder, comes around and takes that step up to being sort of like middle-tier quarterback.
You like Ridder?
I liked Ridder to somewhat coming out of college. I guess my question is, why did it take him so long to overtake Mariota last year?
That's a legit question. That's why we bring Mike Tanier in. He comes with legit answers. Thank you very much for doing so. And the website, The Messenger, got to check it out starting next week for sports. If you're a Politico, you can go ahead and check it out now. But Mike and the rest of his buddies will put the sports section together on Monday, next Monday, debut of the Messenger sports section. And we will have Mike Tanier back plenty during the year. Mike, thanks, bud. Always a pleasure.
You got it. Take care, guys. Enjoy the week.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike Tanier here with us on Birds 365. That's so fun. It's funny how this stuff works out. I was going to bring this up with you later, Farzi. For my CBS show, a national show, I promised my listeners back in, I guess probably going all the way back to July, that I would get a preview guest on for all 32 teams. Now, I only do 2 days a week, so I got to go heavy-handed with the guest to get a preview. 32 guys, that's a whole bunch of guests to slice into a month's time. I think I got 22 done. I got 10 to do, and I got 3 weeks to get done. So it's going to be borderline. But I just did the Falcons this past week, and I had D. Orlando Ledbetter, who we've had here on Birds 365 before, covers the Falcons for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And he kind of sold me because I haven't even done the work that Mike has. I follow the National Football League just in general. I don't spend an hour and a half breaking down the numbers of teams that aren't called the Philadelphia Eagles or the New York Jets. And yeah, he sold me on the Falcons. Here's the problem. I'm just not that big a Desmond Ridder guy. I think he's their starter because Marcus Mariota, let's see, much like he does here in Philadelphia, stunk. So they weren't going to, they went out and got Bijan Robinson rather than drafting the number 3 quarterback in the draft. You think Desmond Ridder is going to win for them this year?
I I don't, but I'm curious to see how he uses Pitt, and I'm curious to see how they use Robinson. I mean, I think those guys are going to end up being their bell cows, obviously, when it comes to their offense. So if he can play point guard, which is usually not a very good compliment to give a quarterback because quarterback's supposed to win for you. If he can play point guard, though, get the ball to those guys, let them show their talent, then yeah, then maybe he'll win for him. But it'll be mostly those guys winning for him.
And somebody's got to win that division. And last year, the Bucks did it with a losing record. 8-9 won that division. Might come down to that again. People are projecting, oh, somebody's going to win 11 games that division. No, they're not. They're really not that good. And I sort of was starting lead toward the Falcons. Then after the fact, you go back and you double check things. And I was going, no, I was right. They're not that good. No one in that division is all that good. Johnny Mac with Mark Farzetta in for Johnny Mac today. We'll come back. Hour number 2, we're going to go in a specific direction as well with our guests. Ian Cummings is going to join us. For those of you who are loyal and stream in every day, Ian's on with us plenty leading up to the draft. I thought it'd be interesting to get him on this week because it's cut down week. All the rookies in the National Football League, guys he scouted all last year and had opinions on, including, of course, the Eagle rookies. We had his look at who he thinks is going to be a major contributor and will be confirmed because they make their rosters this week. And yeah, we'll ask him draft questions for 2024. All right, it's 10 months away. I get it. It's a long time to go before we get to the draft, but he's that good. I'm sure he's already got some opinions on players for this upcoming college season, which also, by the way, gets underway on Saturday. So looking forward to talking to Ian Cummings. He's going to join us next hour here on Birds 365.